Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I'd like to continue talking about my current project of coding the combat system for a viewer's game. So, obviously I've been showing you the code that I've been working on, which has been concentrating on the mechanics of the game. How do we store hit points, and how do we make sure that when someone's hit points go to zero, they don't keep fighting, and how do we keep track of where everyone is and all that sort of thing. Meanwhile, the person whose game this is going to be has been doing work of their own, and they've done a lot of work on the display that will appear when you engage in combat. And of course, we need to eventually integrate their code, what they've done, with what I've done. And we've been a little careless in the sense that when I want to come up with a new variable, I just come up with a new variable, come up with a name, and I put it in initialize. I put it in this as a sort of list of all of the variables that there are. And when they want to come up with a variable, they came up with a variable. And you can probably see the problem here, which is that we need to have the same variables for the same thing, or otherwise the game's not going to work. If I have a variable called $weapon, which I do, it needs to be, it needs to describe the same thing that they describe with the variable $weapon. In other words, if they have a variable called $weapon as well, but it is something completely different or something slightly different, when we combine the code, the game is not going to work as it should. Similarly, if I have a variable called $weapon and they're calling it $WPN, well, as far as the game's concerned, that's two different variables and they're not going to work in the same way. So we should have figured out a system for doing this as we worked, but we didn't, and now we're sort of trying to make up for that oversight. And so they said to me, can you mark every passage in which there is a display or in which there's a visual display with a tag? And tags were a thing that I had heard of, but I hadn't really used and I hadn't really looked into how they work. And so they told me a little bit about tags, and I read a little bit about it, and that's what I'm going to do at least one video on, and probably more than one. So what is a tag? Well, it's a way of marking a particular passage. You can see that in this setup here, we've got some passages have this red line, some have a blue line. In this particular case, it's one or the other. Every passage has either a blue or a red tag, but there's no reason why we couldn't have one that had a red and a blue tag if that happened to fit what we were doing. And that has a couple of uses. One, you can use it as an aid to your memory because it doesn't show up in the game. Putting a tag on a passage doesn't directly have any effect on what the player will see when they run the game. So it's a form of notes for yourself. So for example, you might say, well, I'll keep track of passages where I've started the code, but I haven't quite finished it. And I'll mark all of those in red. And that way, when I come back, I can quickly sort of scroll up and down and go, yes, it's this one, and this one. Or you might have, let's say, two different basic displays, for example. Let's say you have a game where it's a cyberpunk game, and sometimes you're wandering through the streets of a real city, and sometimes you're in cyberspace. You might have one layout to indicate that you're in the real world and one layout to indicate that you're in cyberspace. And so you might have a tag for a passage, which is this one should use the real world display, and you might have another tag, which is this one should use the cyberspace display. And as well as being an aid to your memory, you can also use it for JavaScript and style sheets. You can say, well, I want the font to be this computer-looking font, but only in passages which are the cyberspace passages. for example, because I want a font that sort of makes you think of an old computer and makes it seem like we're in a computer world, or a sort of it gives a sort of retro computer aesthetic, and that's only appropriate for when you're actually hacking in to mainframes or whatever's happening in the game. So it can be both an aid to your memory, which is how I've used it, or an aid to the other person's workflow, that they can sort of more easily find what they're looking for, or it can be an actual thing that has an impact in when you combine it with style sheets or JavaScript, or of course both. So what I'm going to do in this video is just show you how to create a tag and change them, and then in subsequent videos I'll talk about using them in more substantial ways. So let's get into this one at random, and let's say I want to mark every passage that's to do with range. Okay, well, I don't have a tag that's to do with range at the moment, so that's going to involve creating a new tag. So let's say I go to tag, which of course is always going to be the start, and we have add tag, tag name, tag color. We start with add tag. It gives us a list of the whatever I've already created for this game. So this might be empty. I might only have the option of new tag. And let's say I say, all right, tag name, range related, something like that. All right, and I'll call that green. And now this one is green, and that will when I save it, it will save the color and the tag and the name of the tag as well. You can have more than one tag. You can have any number of tags in a single passage. Let's say I decide, well, this is also to do with display. All right, I'll add that existing tag, and you can see that it displays both green and red at the top. Let's say that I actually don't think that's true. I don't think it really is to do with display. We just choose to remove it. We go into the passage, we click the arrow next to the tag, and we remove it. And we can also deal with the names of tags at a story level instead of on individual. So let's say I decide range related, is that really the best description for that? Let's say I've decided no, so we go to story, passage tags, and it shows us we've got 3 so far. Green, that's not really the best. That's not going to help me. I think purple's probably better. And so that will change all of the green tags to purple, in this case, of course, there's only one, but if there's more than one, it would have changed all of them. And then I go, well, actually, that's a bit close to blue, so maybe I don't want that. Oops, sorry. You can actually do it from here as well, but let's say that I want to do it from this level here. I can say, all right, well, I'll make that back to green. I think green was better, and I don't think range related is the best. Maybe I'll say range combat. Like maybe I've got maybe there's range combat and range pre-combat or something like that, and I want to make that distinction. So I'll change that. I'll rename it like that. And those are the basic functions. You'll notice that also there's no barrier to having 2 tags that are the same color, which is a bit surprising. You'd think that it would sort of automatically stop you doing that, but it doesn't. You just have to be careful. I mean, I personally would never have two tags with the same color, because I think it would defeat one of the purposes of it, which is to give a sort of quick visual guide to sort of which passage is doing what. But that's how they've set it up. But those are the main functions. Let's say that I don't think I want display to be. I want it to be yellow. So that's exactly the same. If you change it from within the passage, it has the same effect. You can see that all of the previously red ones have become yellow. Okay, so that is the basics of passages. As I say, what I'll do in an upcoming video is talk about how you can actually use it as part of the programming rather than just a note to yourself, which is what I'm using it for, or a note to someone else. How you can actually have styles and things that are selective based on tags. But I will leave it there for now. I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you'll tune in next time.